Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 dump and go crockpot recipes. These are perfect for the fall season, or if you just need a really quick and easy weeknight dinner, these will be perfect for your family. So I hope you'll enjoy today's video, and let's go ahead and get into it. For this first dinner, I'm making a cream cheese chicken chili. This one is one of our favorites. I've made this so many times over the years. I'm just spraying my crock pot with a little bit of oil, and then I'm adding my chicken right in here. This is 2 large frozen chicken breasts. You can use fresh or frozen for this recipe. Then you're gonna want a can of corn with the liquid still in it, a can of rotel in there, and then I also have a can of black beans that I drained and rinsed off really well. And then for seasonings, I'm gonna do about 2 tablespoons of ranch seasoning mix. I always like to make my own from scratch. I can link the recipe down below that I use. And then I do a tablespoon of chili powder in there. And then you're gonna also want a teaspoon of some ground cumin, as well as a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder in there. About half a teaspoon to a teaspoon each. And then I'm just giving that a quick mix together and throwing a block of cream cheese on there. And I'm gonna cook this on high for about 4 hours until that chicken is cooked through. Once my chicken had completely cooked through, I'm just shredding it with my hand mixer. You do want to make sure to pull the chicken out of the crock pot so you don't shred up all your beans and all of your other ingredients. So I have that set aside, and then I'm taking my wooden spoon and really mixing in that cream cheese in there to make sure that there's not going to be any chunks or anything. And then I'll go ahead and add my chicken back in there and get all of that mixed back in. If you want your chili to be like really nice and thick, just leave it like this. I personally like it to be a little bit on the thinner side, so I think I added about 3/4 cup of just some chicken broth to thin it out a little bit, but that's just personal preference. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I topped it with a little bit of shredded cheese, and this was such a delicious dinner. For this next dinner, I'm going to be making a roast in the crock pot. This is a beef roast, and it's going to be more of like an Italian type flavor. I'm spraying my crock pot with some oil again, and then I did go ahead and just throw my roast in here. You can go ahead and sear it if you want on both sides. That's totally fine, but I just decided to skip it to make my life a little bit easier. And I did just a little bit of salt and pepper on each side. You can also add some garlic powder if you want to. And then here I just have 1 large whole onion that I just kind of really roughly chopped this up. We're pretty much just adding this in here for lots of extra flavor. So I just broke that into some pieces, and then I'm adding in 1 package of Italian dressing mix. You can just get this by the salad dressings at your local grocery store. And then I just added in some beef broth. I think I added in about 1.5 cups of beef broth for this size of roast. You can do anywhere from 1 cup to 2 cups, and then I just cooked this on low for about 8 hours. Now on this day, my son wanted to help me add the carrots in. I never like to add in my veggies right away just because I feel like they get too mushy. So I had him chop up some carrots, and then I threw them in when there was about 4 hours left on the cooking time, and then I just continued to cook that. And this is what the dinner ended up looking like. It was absolutely delicious, easy to make, perfect for a busy weeknight. On this next night, I am making a shepherd's pie, and this is actually using up leftovers from that roast, so it's going to be perfect if you want to use those up. But I'm actually just starting off by making some mashed potatoes. I like to use my Instant Pot. I'm adding in 3 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes. These are peeled, and I slice them up into really thick slices. Then I'm just adding enough water to cover those up. Throw a teaspoon of salt in there, and then I pressure cook these on high for about 8 minutes. Once they're done, you do a quick release, make sure all of the pressure gets out, and then you're going to drain those off, and we'll be ready to add in sour cream and all of the other yummy goodness. So for this amount of potatoes, I like to add in about 1/4 cup of butter, and then about 1/4 cup of sour cream. And then I'm also going to be adding in about 1/4 cup of milk. Easy measurements here, 1/4 cup of all of those things. And then for seasonings, I did about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder, about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Go ahead and mix all of that together. Like I said, I did about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You may want to do up to a teaspoon, just depending on your preferences. But I always use my hand mixer for these, and they turn out so creamy and delicious. So I'm just setting these aside until I need them for the shepherd's pie. Now we are headed back over to the crock pot where we can mix up this shepherd's pie. So I've got about 1 pound of roast left over from the previous night. I just chopped it all up, threw it in here, and then I'm also adding in about 2 to 3 cups of mixed vegetables. These are frozen. I started with 2 cups and added about 3 cups. I dumped in the rest of the bag, so do what you want. And then I have 1 large onion that I had softened in the microwave, big scoop of minced garlic, a couple teaspoons of dried parsley. Of course, you can use fresh for this recipe. And then you're going to want about half teaspoon of rosemary, half teaspoon of some thyme in there. Those add such great flavor for this recipe. A teaspoon of salt, about half a teaspoon of black pepper in there, and then a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. This adds a lot of really good flavor in. A couple teaspoons of flour. This will help thicken everything. And then about 2 to 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. This gives it a really rich flavor. And then about 1 cup of broth in there. And then you're just going to mix all of this together really well until everything is nice and combined. This is a recipe that you can also make in the oven if you want to, but I usually will just throw it into my crock pot for a really quick and easy dinner that I don't have to think about later on. And now it's time to dump on the mashed potatoes that we had cooked up earlier in the Instant Pot. So I like a good thick coating of mashed potatoes on my shepherd's pie. I know some people will do less than this, but I love a good layer of mashed potatoes on there. I cooked this on high for about 3.5 hours. And then once it was about almost done cooking, I just threw on some shredded cheddar cheese on top. And this was absolutely delicious. Sorry for the lighting here. I was at my in-laws and the lighting is different there, but this was super delicious. I think you guys will really like it. For this next dinner, I'm making a really creamy white chicken chili. Now, this is my first time actually making a white chicken chili, but it was so delicious. Again, spraying my crock pot with some oil, and then I'm adding in 2 chicken breasts. I usually use frozen for pretty much any recipe, and it turns out perfect. So 2 large frozen chicken breasts, and then I added in a can of green chilies. This was a 4-ounce can here. And then I added in 2 cans of beans. I did choose to use 2 cans of Great Northern beans, but the recipe did call for cannelli beans. And then I also added in about 2 tablespoons of lime juice along with a chopped up onion in there. I added in about 3 cloves of minced garlic in there, and then for seasonings I did a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of oregano, and a teaspoon of chili powder. And then for the broth in this recipe, you're going to see that I just added in about 2.5 cups of water, but then I did also add in some bouillon in there. So you can either add in the broth or you can add in some water and some bouillon. Totally up to you however you want to do it. But then I just gave this a really quick mix together before adding in my cream cheese. You're just going to throw a block of cream cheese right on top. And then I cooked this on high for about 4 hours, and it turned out absolutely delicious. Once it was done, I just pulled out that chicken, shredded up with my hand mixer. You guys know that's my thing. Shredded chicken with a hand mixer is 100% the way to go. It works so well. And then back over to my crock pot, I just gave this a really good mix together to get all of the chunks of the cream cheese in there. You definitely don't want chunks in your chili. Just give it a really good mix and it'll blend right in there. And then add in your chicken. And that is really it for this recipe. This one was absolutely delicious. You can top it with sour cream, cheese, tortilla chips, whatever you want. I did decide to add in a little bit more garlic powder and a little bit more salt just because that's what we liked, but you can totally taste it and see what your family loves. But I just served this alongside of a dinner roll and it was a perfect easy dinner. On this next night, I truly had no idea what I was going to make, but I had a few things in my pantry to use up, so I made this ranch chicken orzo pasta dish, and it was actually really good. So I'm starting off with 2 chicken breasts frozen. I'm just throwing those right into my crock pot. You guys know I always use them frozen, and it works totally fine for these recipes. I had a can of cream of chicken that I needed to get used up, and then I just threw in a cup of chicken broth right in here. And then for seasonings, I did about 2 tablespoons of ranch seasoning mix, a teaspoon of garlic powder. I did not add any more salt because obviously the broth and the cream of chicken had seasoning and salt in it, so I didn't want to overdo it. And then I just cooked this on high for about 4 hours. Mine did actually cook a little bit longer than 4 hours just because I was out of the house for the day and I didn't get home until late that night. But then I'm just shredding it up with a hand mixer, and then I just ended up cooking up a little bit of orzo pasta. I had probably about half a box of orzo pasta in my pantry to use up, so I just cooked that up on the stove top and dumped it right in there. If you wanted to try cooking the orzo in the actual chicken dish, I would just add in extra water when you add the broth in, and then it should be totally fine and you should be able to cook it that way. But this one was absolutely delicious. It was very simple, quick and easy to make, and my kids really enjoyed it too. All right, you guys, that is going to wrap up today's Crockpot video. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to check out my Crockpot playlist in my description box. I have lots of Crockpot videos on my channel. I'm sure more will be coming out this fall, so definitely check those out. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.